Talking Tough, doing our first interview during this craziness. It's known worldwide now as the coronavirus. I suspect that we may talk a little bit about that today. Not that I'm up on that, but our guest today has a very unique view on everything that has to do with current affairs and stuff that's happening in this world. He's not a politician. You're going to be amazed when I tell you who this guy is, and that he has a much better take on world events than just about anybody that I know. Or an amusing take, certainly. So I always like to say at the top of the podcast that we are doing the show from up here in the forest of Maui. And I bring this up for two reasons. One is we're isolated up here, and I live with my 4 pit bulls, just me and them, the 5 of us. And because we're isolated, if a car or a person comes anywhere within a quarter mile of this place, my dogs are going to explode. So you might hear a lot of barking suddenly out of the middle of nothingness, and I guess I'll apologize for that in advance. I also bring this up because it allows me to plug the one thing that I love to plug every episode, and that is the Bully Dog Rescue Coalition. That's our nonprofit where we are working our asses off to save pit bulls everywhere and just better their reputation. That's at bullydogrescue.com. Please check us out there, help support us, and support the 4 women that are running the pit bull sanctuaries around the world that we're promoting through the website and through our nonprofit. So let me get back to our guest. I've had some amazing, interesting, outrageous, crazy people on the show, and it's always a search to figure who's next, who can not only entertain our audience, but who's got something to say. So my guest today is, I would dare say, a pretty close personal friend of mine. We can get his opinion on that in a moment. And this is the first guest. I was telling my producer, John Prozorowski, who's on the line, he's from the Two-Man Power Trip, that this is the first interview I have not put any notes down for at all. And it's not out of laziness. I like to prepare. It's 2 things. One, I feel like there's an easy rapport. And 2, for a guy who was incredibly famous at a point in time, there's almost nothing on the internet. It's pretty bizarre, and I want to ask him about that. Our guest today is my good friend, a guy who would have been, in my opinion, one of the top pro wrestlers in the world had he decided to give it a go. He is an all-around, intelligent, interesting, funny guy. He was known far and wide as Joe Millionaire. I know him a lot better as my friend Evan Marriott. Evan, welcome on to Talking Tough.
Would have been one of the top pro wrestlers in the world?
You know what's funny? Let's address that right out of the gate. Okay, just so you don't think I'm working the audience here and trying to hype things for this podcast. And we'll talk a little bit about pro wrestling today because it was part of your life. It was part of mine. I think you know, Evan. I wrote a book called Little Big Man. Now it sounds like I'm plugging something else. And in that book, in the wrestling chapter of it, I have an insert, and the insert is called The 5 That Got Away. And I go into this long meditation describing 5 different guys and how, had they gone ahead with their pro wrestling training, in my opinion, would have been 5 of the very top guys in the world. And you are absolutely one of those 5 guys. So that said, I stand by the statement I made during the introduction. It's right there in black and white in print.
Well, wow, Rick, I really appreciate that. I've never. I mean, I don't even really. And this might not shock you, but I don't even talk about my training with you or with anyone else unless somebody brings it up. I mean, I just don't even. I was just kind of like the show as well. I don't, unless somebody brings it to my attention. I don't really talk about it much, and that really, and not a lot of people know that I was involved with you and trying to train to become to go to WWE. So that's really cool of you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, so I've never shared that with you before then, that I thought you had that level of potential?
Well, no, I mean, you had kind of said it, but I mean, when someone says that, you just kind of think, okay, well, he's just saying that. It's like one of those, oh, shucks, he's just saying that to me. It's so good at the moment. But I never thought it would make it into
that to all the girls, right? That sort of thing. Right. No, it's funny. And for those out there who are not quote unquote inside or know the lingo of pro wrestling, there's a phrase called putting somebody over, where you're basically extolling their virtues. Sometimes it's sincere, sometimes it's not. But to put over, and again, you're right. Not many people know. I think that you took a foray into the wild world of pro wrestling. So to put Evan over for a second. I hope you don't mind. Guys, by the way, I'm going to keep saying this over and over. For a guy who is so famous, Evan truly is probably the anti of wanting ever to be famous and very humble at the same time. So, Evan, I'm going to put you over and embarrass you for a second. But let me ask you this. You're a student of pro wrestling. For a guy to be a star in pro wrestling, what qualities does he need?
To be a star?
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm gonna really disappoint you, Rick, because I'm gonna tell you what I've heard and what I agree with. How's that?
That's fine.
They can work around your working ability can be limited, but if you're not a good talker, now I might be totally going off on a whole nother, but the guys that couldn't put promos and weren't good talkers, they never quite made it. I just think of the greatest performers or wrestlers that I can remember back in the day just being really good talkers and really good workers. But, man, if they were good on the mic and they could put butts in the seats, as they said, that was half the battle. Two-thirds of the battle. Am I wrong on that? Or?
No, you're absolutely right. I think you're missing a couple of key points, not you personally, but let me fill them in. So you said being good in promos on the mic. I definitely thought in your limited amount of time you spent with us that you had really good aptitude for that, and I think you would have gotten even better and better. You were very John. I know John hates this because he's a humble, shy guy. Also, our producer John. Are you on the line, John?
Yes, sir.
John's probably hanging out.
So John produces the two-man power trip of wrestling. He's far more expert in the world of pro wrestling than I am. So I'm going to bring you into this discussion for a second here. John, it was interesting having Evan in the ring because, you guys walk through the door, and I hate to even bring up the name John Cena, but when Cena walked through, I mean, you can see the physical gifts. It was pretty obvious. So Evan, what are you, 6'5", 6'4"? Evan, are you there?
Yeah, I lost you, Rick.
Oh, Evan, what are you, 6'5", 6'4"? How tall are you?
6'4". Yeah, around there. Just depends on the shoe. Say 6'4".
So 6'4", and probably your weight at that time was what, 240, 250?
I was actually at that time I was 260.
You were but you were jacked and shredded both. I remember that.
I had a little hamburger helper in me though.
Okay, fair enough. Whatever it took. I know the hamburger helper. We all imbibed in hamburger helper back in those days. I hear you loud and clear. Didn't do for me. I think what it did for you, but that's all right.
I don't want to get you off the subject, but I hear people bring it up, and I hear people look down their nose and stick out their lower lip at that stuff. I tried it. I was on it for a while. I really enjoyed it, but I don't know. I've never been a big fan. This is going to throw people for. I've never been a big fan of it being illegal. So it's kind of like it's like smoking with certain age. It's just like your smoking years is what I mean. Just smoke all you want, But people take offense to it because secondhand smoke bothers people. Steroids are not going to bother somebody else. You know what I'm saying? It's just what you're.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I never thought of it like that. No, and I hear you. So. Let's say you were on it for a very limited period, which is fine. But the point I was making was, when you walked through the doors that first day at 6'4", 6'4.5", whatever you were, and 260, and you had a very symmetrical physique. You looked like, the poster child for the Vince McMahon pro wrestler movement at that point in your life. And, and you weren't ugly either. All you got to do is look at the cover of Us magazine from back in those days and whatnot. You had the personality. Your promo work had great potential, and you may not put yourself over in the following manner, but you were very, very natural in the ring. I think you had all of 2 matches, if I remember correctly. One was against Brian Kendrick, also known as Spanky. The other was Alcatraz. And, man, they were both a lot better than they had any right to be for a guy who had 2 pro wrestling matches. So, in my mind, you had literally every ingredient that was necessary to make it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I'd be stupid if I said or told you that I looked back on that and said maybe leaving was a good idea or quitting. And I don't even know. I can't even remember why I quit. I think I moved, and I was having some financial issues. I didn't at that time. I didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of, and I had moved to Orange County, which is which was stupid because that's where we were in Huntington, right? We were at LA Boxing. We were training out of there.
Beach, exactly right. Yes.
And then we moved over to the Gold's Gym. I remember they had a big room there where we trained.
Yep. Gold's Gym in Huntington Beach. Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know. I can't, but I'll tell you this much. I look back on that and I think, well, where would I be right now if I had pursued it? And with your connections over at OVW and the WWE with John Laurinaitis, I mean, who knows where it would have gone? I mean, you can only wonder now. I'm 45 and in a lot of pain. So,
do you regret not having? You grew up as a fan. I know that. You know a lot about pro wrestling from a fan standpoint. Do you regret not having moved forward with it, or is it just one thing I know about you also, and I don't want to say this the wrong way, but it seems to me like in a good way that you don't get attached to things. I would say you just don't care, and I say that in a good way. But how do you feel about pro wrestling? Do you regret not having moved forward, or are you cool with it?
Well, I'll tell you one of my biggest regrets. This is actually probably a story not many people know. And like I said, I told you earlier, I don't really think about this stuff unless somebody brings it up, and you're bringing it up. So I'll talk on it. I don't do a lot of interviews either, Rick. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I do know that, and I appreciate you doing this one. I asked, I was talking to our sometimes very good mutual friend, Tom Howard, and told him I was going to ask you to be on. And Tom's like, Evan will never do it. Evan doesn't do interviews. So I appreciate you being on, man.
Well, no. I mean, I'd help you any way I could, Rick. And I at the time, do you remember Ed Connors?
Absolutely. Of course. One of the founders of Gold's Gym worldwide, yeah.
Yeah, Ed Connors had Shane McMahon's ear, and this was after I'd done the show. So the show went on from I think the first week in January, and it ended in March. And Ed had reached out to me and said, Evan, I don't remember Ed's voice. You talk like that.
Ed had that voice, and
he was very distinct.
He said, Evan, I talked to Shane McMahon, and I didn't know if I should have done that or not, but he said he was very interested in you calling him and maybe working, with them for a WrestleMania thing. And I said, well, did you know about this, Rick?
You know what? If I did, I don't remember it now. So let's say I'm hearing this for the first time. Go ahead.
I was another one of those things where, okay, Ed, whatever. And I should have not doubted him because I knew he knew a lot of people. But I did. And one day, out of nowhere, I got a call, and it was Shane McMahon. And he said, hey, I talked to Ed Connors, and he said he knew you. And again, Rick, this was at a time where I was where people were calling. People were calling my manager Randy, and I was the flavor of the month, as I like to call it.
Let me give you some quick context, and I apologize. I interrupt a lot during these things, but quick context. You've mentioned a few times now the show. I know what you're talking about. I assume most people who know you do, but let me expound a bit. So the show is Joe Millionaire. This was a ridiculously monster hit on Fox Network. Probably one of the first true quote-unquote reality shows out there, with a final episode that was viewed by, I believe, 36 million people, which is just an obscene number. It landed you on the cover of magazines like Us and People and whatnot. So, yeah, I imagine you were getting some calls. So go ahead, please.
And Rick, in your defense, you're right. You have to expand on that because I'm not gonna. Because after 15 years, 15 years, I call it the show. I don't call it Joe Millionaire. It just makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck, and there's I can get a little deeper into that later, but I did a lot of things, and I was on Howard Stern show 3 times, and I went on Regis and Kelly, and I was exposed to a lot of things, and had the good fortune to experience a lot of things, and so I'm just assuming this was kind of a something that Shane was interested in, getting me in there to maybe work an angle at WrestleMania. It's like, because every year they have a celebrity, for WrestleMania, and to him that was going to be something that they were going to. But the problem is that the storyline he pitched to me was that I would have this angle with Trish Stratus where I slapped her. And
I do remember this now. Yes, of course. Go ahead, please. Yes.
And I just, the minute he said that, I just cringed, because I thought, I've already got some heat. There you go. There's a wrestling term. I've already got some heat from the public, because I'm getting this, you lied to the girls about who you were and all this stuff. And I just thought, man, the last thing I need to do is to go, even though they know it's scripted and it's just gladiator theatrics. I can't be out there slapping a chicken, at WrestleMania. I can't do it. And I had said something to him about, well, Shane, that's very interesting. I didn't poo-poo it. I just said, that's very interesting. What do you think about this? I'm Evan Marriott. I'm Joe Millionaire. Who do you have on your roster right now that literally brags about being the 60-minute man, and he's the kiss-stealing, wheeling-dealing, jet-flying, limousine-riding son of a gun? I'm like, I bet he takes me under his wing and teaches me how to be a real millionaire, teaches me how to dress, teaches me everything that they were trying to teach me on the show. But he actually liked that. He was like, that's an interesting little concept. And I told Missy Halperin at Fox, who was their director of talent relations.
I remember Missy, sure, yeah.
And she said, I don't think so. She didn't say no, but she said, Evan, I don't think that our standards in practice, because I was under contract with them. They held me under contract.
Yeah, Fox had control over you at that time. That's right.
For 2 years. And I just kind of walked away from it and said, okay, oh well, whatever. And looking back on it, and this is where I'm going with this, looking back on it, when people do things, it's like that ask for forgiveness instead of permission type thing.
Yep.
Looking back on it, I probably should have just never said anything to anybody, shown up at WrestleMania, or shown up at whatever Raw or whatever they wanted to do to start building the program. As long as it didn't have to do with slapping Trish Stratus, that was where I was going to draw a line. I wasn't going to do something like that.
Well, you know what I love about that? As far as, whether you had decided to show up or not, I mean, we all have our lives are all full of, couldas and wouldas, of course, and who knows what would have happened. But what I love about this is, to me, this illustrates, it's a perfect illustration of how I look at you as a guy who just doesn't care. And again, I mean that in a good way. And here's what I mean. You grew up as a huge fan. I know that. Your friends know that. And, right. And John, if you're on the line still, think about this, man. Here's a guy who goes
I swear to God, John's probably like hanging from a noose. I swear. He's probably like
No way. No way. I love it.
So think about this. Guy grows up as a monster fan, and now he's getting a phone call from Shane McMahon asking him to be featured on WrestleMania with Trish Stratus, and he's saying no. Dude, you got to love that, because it doesn't fit your morals, and I think that's great. I love it.
But it's more, it's more than that, Rick, because you got to understand this wasn't, not that I would do it now, and I'm not saying that, but you got to understand I was just under a lot of stress back then, just wanting to get away from the media, not wanting to do interviews, not just kind of wanting to. And here's the thing. It was odd to say that that's what I wanted to do after that show, but it wasn't. I wanted to be, if I was going to be, recognized for something, and this is what I've said to everyone that's ever asked me, if I wanted to be recognized for something, recognize me for something that is going to mean something at the end of the day, that you're going to take home and go, God, Evan really, that cancer drug he invented, man, that's really wiped out cancer. Or, Evan had the most rushing yards this season. I didn't do shit but show up and take out 21 girls And I didn't even really do that. And I got all of this recognition for it and fame and money, and I felt guilty about it. I mean, I can't be any more blunt than that. I felt.
Well, this is a shoot. I know it really does bother you, doesn't it?
I carry around a lot of guilt for people that are out there every day, busting their ass, like we got it going on right now with coronavirus. People are out there just trying to make ends meet, and here comes this freaking, pandemic, and it's gonna obliterate their savings. It's gonna, and I've always thought like that. Because I came from a family where my dad worked 5 jobs, and my mother that's still a family secret, but when I was a kid, when I was a toddler, my mother was a bricklayer. How many people come on and tell you that about their mother? My mother laid bricks. She was a mason to make extra money when I was, 3, 4 years old while my dad was off working. I mean, it was just like I came from a working family, so I knew what it meant to work hard, and I felt really guilty being handed this money. And Rick, I'm not, look, I just to really hit the point home, and I've never really told anybody about this. I might have said it in an interview or two. I was making mad money on appearances. I mean, money that would make you violently ill if you knew what. I mean, well, I can tell you, you've been around this stuff. I'd make $15,000 to show up for a 4-hour signing at a mall. And then 2 days later, I'd be at a strip club judging a bikini contest for $10,000 cash.
Yeah, and getting paid to go to the strip club, right? And have all the hot strippers follow over you, right? That's a rough gig, man. I know.
Yeah, and this is no shit. And John, I don't know if you're still on, but this is no shit. I mean, yes. My manager would negotiate whoever was the next town I was going to. Say it was, and I did a thing for Young Brands that they had to fly their private jet to come get me. So I'd get on a private jet in John Wayne, and I'd fly out to, St. Louis, and I'd do a signing for $15,000, and they'd fly me back. And this happened overnight. So and this whole time, I would just be like, how did this happen to me, like this quickly? And it just, and we don't want to get off track here, but getting back to the I look back on it now, Rick, and I see, I don't watch wrestling anymore, but say up till about 8 years ago, I would watch, the Hall of Fames and stuff, and they would do like a celebrity inductee, and I would just sit there and look, Rick, and I'd go, if I'd done that WrestleMania, maybe one of those days I would have been inducted into the Hall of Fame. And then to your acknowledgement earlier, I never gave myself that much credit, but maybe I could have been that one celebrity that wasn't Pete Rose or wasn't what's the guy from Cleveland? What was it?
Drew Carey.
Drew Carey.
Well, Lawrence Taylor even. Yeah, none of these guys could work.
Or any of the celebrities.
Right.
If I had worked an angle at WrestleMania, and I'm not tooting my own horn, Rick, but do you think? And you're the perfect person to ask because you saw me. I would have probably been the one person, TV celebrity. I don't consider myself a celebrity, but TV personality that could have actually worked a match.
If you had kept your head in the game and you did not get injured, you, in my opinion, again, would have been in the upper 20 percentile of big guy workers in the business.
I'm not saying I would have gone out there and had a Savage Steamboat match. Okay, that's not what we're not talking about.
You can have some very good matches, man. I have no doubt of that.
I could have gone out there and the crowd would have been like, Jesus, I didn't know Evan. I mean, what? We didn't know he could do this. We didn't know he was, I look at it like that. It was an opportunity missed. And it was because, you're right, A, I probably didn't care, and B, I was trying to be the good talent, as they call it. You know this. The good, they call them, it doesn't make a difference who you are. If you're on TV, you're called talent. So I was trying to be the good, dutiful talent for Fox, and it came back to bite me in the ass because I gave up a lot of things.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, I don't know.
Well, we all know they gave you the vehicle of exposure in the first place, which is probably what put those opportunities in front of you. So it's a double-edged sword, certainly. But, man, I would have liked to see what would have happened. And I don't want to, John Wilt, we keep repeating keep invoking poor John to the conversation. John will tell you I do everything I can during these interviews to stay away from pro wrestling, yet I keep bringing it back to the subject. So I want to ask you, you mentioned Ric Flair earlier, and that was a cool program you pitched. You and Rick became friends for a while. I always try to steer away from pro wrestling in this podcast, but now I'm in the mode, so I've got a couple more things I want to bring up before we move on. You mentioned Ric Flair earlier.
I apologize. That's just my connection to you, Rick.
No,
you know
I want to keep bringing it up. It's not you. It's me that's doing it. But so I'm apologizing to you and going against my usual grain here. But you had mentioned Flair earlier. You and Rick became hangout buddies for a while, did you not?
Yeah.
All right, give us a good. All right, that laugh says it all. Do you have a good Ric Flair story for us? You don't mind telling?
Yeah, it's not a. I mean, yeah, it's nothing that nobody already knows, and it's.
Oh, come on, Evan. Say this is a Talking Tough exclusive, and then break it on us.
Well, no, Rick. But here's the thing. I talked to you. And I'm not dodging this question. I'm going to answer it. But I talked to you. I think I talked to you a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and I told you I listened to podcasts. They're entertaining. When I'm in the truck, and I just learned, of certain people, like Jim Ross and guys like that. And sometimes I'll listen to these podcasts, and John, you know this. I'm not going to say anything you don't already kind of know. And I listen to these podcasts and I hear these stories, and I'm like, person just saying this to just to put themselves over, or just to make it sound like they've got a good story on somebody. Nothing that I've got on anybody is anything that's secretive. I mean, no one, but it was just an odd. I had a publicist that was. She was Flair's publicist, and her name. I had her for about a cup of coffee.
It wasn't Melissa, was it?
No, she was Chris Jericho's publicist and Triple H's publicist and Ric Flair's publicist. And I knew that Flair had been wrapped in there somewhere because she was Triple H's publicist, and I figured that Triple H just brought Flair along. And her name's going to hit me. But anyway, and I met Rick. I met Ric Flair backstage when I went back there with you at Anaheim Pond. You and I and Shu went, and that's the Matt Weesey who was Luther Reigns, Horseshoe, our good friend. You and I believe he was there, and you said, Evan, we're going over to the Anaheim Pond. You want to go? I'm like, yeah, okay. So we went over there, and I saw Rick. And Rick actually said to me, he goes, I've watched your show when I can. And I thought that was like, you watch my show? Oh, shit. Triple H had a big shit-eating grin on his face. And then I ended up doing a show, and John, you might remember the show. It was called Morning Pizza. Do you remember Morning Pizza?
Yeah, it sounds very, very familiar.
It was on ESPN.
Cold pizza. You're right, cold pizza.
I'm sorry, Morning Pizza. I'm thinking of Morning Joe.
That's right.
And I walk in, and Rick is there, and he had remembered seeing me at the pond, and he gets up and shakes my hand, and we talk. We were in the green room, and he said, Evan, I'm going to be in Santa Monica. I'm going to be in L.A. on this such and such a day. So long ago, I can't remember. And he goes, here's my number. Call me, and on this, and we'll go out. And he ended up being at the Viceroy in Santa Monica. And he just said, hey, I'm going to be here for 4 or 5 days. Get a room, and we'll go out and grab drinks. I'm thinking, wait a minute. I mean, this what turned out to be just dinner with he and his wife, and his wife was flying back to Charlotte, and he just wanted to find a party partner. And I was dating a girl at the time named Lisa Ligon, who was not bad to look at. She was pretty easy on the eyes, and she had some friends, and we all went, and I don't even know the name. I can't remember the name of this club. It might have been Hush or Shush, or I don't know what the hell it was. And it was in L.A., and we went out there, and I'll tell you the Ric Flair story that no one's ever heard. We were all at a table, and this place, I got to figure out the name of this club, but it was Hugh Hefner used to go there on Friday and Saturday nights, and he'd have his girls with him. and we're all at a table, and we've got a nice selection of girls at our table because Lisa ran a dance group called Perfect Angels, and I think they're still around, and they do these dance. They're like Harley Davidson cheerleaders. They go around all these big Harley, and she's actually made a good career out of it. And we have
I'm looking at her. I googled her while we're on the phone. She is definitely not horrific looking by any means.
No, and a sweetheart, I mean, an absolute sweetheart. Not one of these girls that thinks her shit doesn't stink. I mean, she was just as genuine as it comes.
And right under her name, under related searches, it says Lisa Ligon husband, and your photo is there. I kid you not. Anyway, I thought you might want to know that.
Well, I never married her. So.
Fair enough.
But
that's what it shows.
Anyway, this is a great Ric Flair story, and this is not a knock on Rick. This is how he really believed in who he was. I went over because I'd already been to the Playboy Mansion 1 or 2 times. And Lisa was always in my ear going, you need to do this, you need to do this. And I mean, not in a bad way, but she was always like, you know, Hugh knows that you were at the Playboy Mansion. You need to go over and say, you know, I had a really good time at the party. And I didn't know. I just I had a good time at the party, the last party, and you know, just, you know, whatever. Just go over and say hi, right? So I did that. And I'm looking at her like, all right, I'll go over there and thank him for inviting me. And that's what it was. Thank him for inviting me. She goes, because then you get another invite back. He'll make sure, because he hand-selected those people at that time, right? And I didn't know.
This is who? This is Hugh Hefner we're talking about?
Hugh Hefner, right. So I go over to now Rick and the girls are sitting at the table. I go over to Hugh Hefner and I say, you know, it's at your last party, midsummer night, whatever the fuck. And I didn't say it like that, but I said, you know, and I just want to thank you for the invite. It was a lot of fun, and hope you're having a good night. And he looked at me and he said, hey, thank you so much. And he said, and he said this. If God is my witness, he said, I see you over there with Ric Flair, and he knew him.
That's awesome.
And I said, yes, sir, I am. And he goes, well, tell him to come by and say hi to me. I'd love to talk to him. I said, well, I'll do that. I go back to the table, and I sit down, and I'm sitting next to Rick, and I said, Rick, I was just over there. I said, and I didn't know. I said, Hugh Hefner just told me he recognized you and said, if you want to come by and say hi. You know what Rick said to me? He goes,
I think I have the correct guess, but go ahead. Or should I guess?
He said if he wants to talk to me, he can come over here.
That's what I figured. Oh man, that's awesome.
and I literally, I wanted to. If Rick, I mean, you know how. I mean, John, I wanted to slide under that table. My 6'4" body wanted to slink under that table. I was so embarrassed that I had said that to Ric Flair because I literally felt like I had just offended him, and I didn't know. I wasn't thinking, right? But anyway, so that was a one night outing, and then the one you guys probably want to hear is we were sitting there by the pool, and he had just had shoulder surgery, and he just looked over at me, and he had known that I knew guys like Matt. Rick, he knew that I knew Matt, and he knew, you know, that I had kind of known a couple of the guys backstage, like John. So I think he was comfortable asking me this, and Tom knows this story. But he just looked over at me like it was no big deal, and he goes, "Hey, I can't reach." He goes, "I'm having a hard time with my shoulder," and he was. I mean, he wasn't saying he was a damn good, you know, he was damn good at faking it because everywhere we went, he looked like he was really not doing well with his shoulder. And he goes, "Can you stick me?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. What do you got?" He goes, "Well, I got it up in the room." So my claim to fame is that I stuck, I think it was Decca, yeah. I think I stuck Ric Flair with Decca in his hotel room. There's my Ric Flair.
Well, that's a visual I'm going to try to not carry with for too long, but I appreciate that.
But Rick, I mean, you know, not in a lot of guys, you know, that were back then that we were all training. A lot of guys didn't like needles, and you know, with my heroin addiction back, no, I'm kidding. No, with my, I just didn't bother them. I don't like razors, so I would have never been good at, you know, getting color. But needles never bothered me. So just a lot of guys would say, can you stick me? Because I just can't do it. And I'd be like, yeah.
No,
but I would always tell them.
I remember it well. Sure.
But I would always tell them, you know, because a lot of the dumb, which there were a lot of them. A lot of the dumber guys would mix the anabolic and the, you know, and the androgenic steroids, which one's an oil and one's a water based, and they would use separate syringes, and I'd be like, no, those you put it all in one syringe and you do it in one shot. It's like ripping a Band-Aid off. You know what I mean? You don't shoot this one and then shoot that one and then shoot that one. You do it all in one go. John, am I scaring you?
Nope, not yet.
Am I scared? Okay, because you probably didn't expect this out of Joe Millionaire, did you?
No, definitely not. I'm shocked.
I'm
right now.
I'm messing with you. So that was that was my thing. I stuck Ric Flair, and over the years after that, then we just, like a lot of people he's around, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just think he lives a life that a lot of people kind of fade from, and I just lost contact. I talk with his ex a lot, though. Not a lot. I talk to Tiffany, one of his exes, every once in a blue moon.
Yeah, well, we drift apart. I mean, you and I lost touch for numerous years also, and we seem to get back in touch, which is great. Yeah, and that's how life goes, man. So
John,
I want to go
just
back
real quick. Can I tell a story on you?
Of course.
Yes, go
So
for
John, I live in the same apartment that does John know Tom?
Oh wait, did you say a story? You told me a story about what? I'm sorry.
Does John know Tom?
John knows of Tom Howard, certainly.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So but anyway, Tom was my roommate.
Evan, I'm sorry, real quickly for our listeners out there, Tom Howard, if you're not familiar, he's a guy I call my best friend in pro wrestling. He was the head trainer at Ultimate University, my wrestling school, for many years, and a guy who had stardom with AAA in Mexico, 0-1 in Japan, and a hell of a worker and trainer both. And he fought 6 times in K1. Very interesting guy. Sorry, Evan, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, Tom was a good guy, real soft-spoken, and you just, you never minded being around Tom because he was just a pretty laid-back guy. And Rick, I live in an apartment complex here, rather, it's like a little beach community complex here, right across the street from the beach in San Clemente. And I was introduced to this little complex from Rick Bassman and Tom. And Rick, everybody else had apartments here, and Rick had an office here. Like, he turned his apartment into an office.
Yeah, and this is like Melrose Place with the pool in the middle overlooking the ocean, and we turned that into... Anyway, go ahead. You got the story, yes.
John, I'm telling you, I walked into Rick's office, which was supposed to be an apartment, which I don't think the landlords gave a shit what he was doing in there. It was a full bar. He had an office in the back. He had 2 hot girls, working for him in the back, and I walked into this place, I thought, man, I want to be a part of this, right? So I'm still living in one of the apartments 15 years later. I'm still living in the same apartment that I moved to because the apartment came open, and I moved in, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah, and that's like one of the many things that I find interesting about you, Evan, is, I don't want to spend too much time on Joe Millionaire either, but I reference it only because, well, hey, you're known for that to a large degree. It was so monster huge, and in my mind, so there you were, being flown around on private jets, making tons of money to go to strip clubs, being on the cover of Us and People, and in my mind, you've always been a much happier guy when you grow your beard out, grab a drink, and kick back in your apartment in San Clemente. And I think that's something. There's a lot to be said for that, and even envied. Is that accurate?
Did you ever tell John about the bachelor party or the bachelor auction that you signed up in around that time?
No, man, I've forgotten so much. I've forgotten more stuff than most people I think ever lived in a lifetime. I'm gonna plead the fifth on this one, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
You approached me and said, Evan, they're doing a charity benefit. They're doing a bachelor auction in Irvine, and I'm Scott. Rick, who is your ex-wife? Gabrielle.
Oh, my ex-wife, Gabrielle. Yes, of course.
Gabrielle. Rick had a really sweet wife, Gabrielle, and she talked me into it. I said, no, Gabrielle, I want to do it. Rick goes, Evan, come on. Gabrielle thinks it's good for you. You do it. I'm like, okay. Well, I'd grown this beard out, right, at a time where beards weren't real popular. And my mother said, Evan, what are you doing with that beard? You look like you're homeless. And I'm like, I don't know. And literally, John, this is 2005. You know, so this wasn't a, you know, like there's Instagrams with guys with beards, and there's beard balms and beard lotions, and beards weren't hot, you know, they weren't the hot item for guys back then, right? And because I had been on this show, they put me on last. Well, let's put it this way: I walked out to this sea of women, and they, if they could have scrambled to the door, it wouldn't have been more obvious. I didn't get one. Rick, remember that? I didn't get, like, no one bid on me. I think I got,
this
like,
is coming back now. Yeah, it is, right.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember this now. I think it's a reminder, yes. Yeah,
I remember walking to the back going, man, that didn't work out too well, now did it?
Hey, well, nothing ventured, nothing gained, right, Evan?
Yeah, right, yeah.
I suppose. All right, so you come from a humble background. You move out to California. You're approached one day by somebody you never met before about doing this little TV show, and the next thing you know, almost quite literally overnight, you're arguably the most famous person in America, at least for a certain period of time. And everything that you would think would come with that does. You described some of that before, and then it's pretty quickly it's over. When on Talking Tough, we exchange a lot of stories, sex, drugs, and rock and roll stories, even the fun stuff that made people, what the public perceives them to be. But we talk about the other side also, because you know as well as anybody, and I know this because I know you, that for every positive action, there's a negative action as well, or there's a down for each up. When everything ended, was that a down for you, or was it a relief?
It was a relief.
So prior to that, and I was a bit of questions, I thought I knew the answer for that, and I was right, which doesn't happen often. What was the toughest part of it? Do you remember any part of that period of time where you're just like, fuck, let me out of this. This is awful.
Well, I did that to myself, because I remember the conversation. I remember I had told you before, I would go out to these cities, and I would travel from city to city, and I would do these appearances, and I went all as far as Canada. I went, everywhere. Pick a place, inside North America, Toronto, Vancouver, Miami, St. Louis. It was like a wrestler. Literally it was like a wrestler. I was in a different city every other night, or every other 2 nights. And what I was doing as well, which both of you guys, John and Rick, you guys will get this, I was waking up at 3 in the morning or 3:34 in the morning to do on the West Coast, if I was actually home, or wherever I was, to do an interview, a radio interview for my next appearance, say it was on the East Coast. So I would get in late at night, 11, 12 o'clock, 1 in the morning, and I'd have to be up 4 or 5 hours later to do a radio interview, and I'd never experienced this before. And I'd want to just beat the shit out of somebody because I was, because I was just I was just tired and I was worn down. And I remember Randy would give me these, God, Rick, it's almost like parallel to wrestling. It was almost like a booking sheet. Randy was my manager, John. That's who I'm referring to. And I keep referring to John because I'm trying to pull him along with all these people. Rick, you know.
No, it's good. It's all right.
I'm trying to. Rick, you know these people. John doesn't. I feel like I'm talking to John, but I'm talking to all your listeners. But Randy would give me these these bookings like a month out, and it would be all the places I'm going, and it would right next to it what I'm going to make, at what date. And I literally called him a couple weeks before, and I said that I was done with it. I said, I'm done. And he goes, what do you mean you're done? I said, I'm done. I can't do this. I said, I'm about to lose my shit. Now here's a guy that's making 10, 15 grand an appearance, Rick. That's how.
And being flown first class or private, probably staying in 5-star hotels, got
that's how.
Got the hottest chicks in the world throwing themselves at him. I know. I get it. It sounds pretty awful.
Well, that was the funny thing is that I didn't have a whole lot of chicks throwing themselves at me. That's I wasn't Nikki Sixx. All right. No one was trying to get with this band. All right. I was just this dorky. Seriously, it was this weird thing because I never really had. That's a whole other story. But I didn't have like this. Everybody thinks I had like these groupies that were running around. I didn't. No one was lining up to fuck Joe Millionaire. I promise you that. I mean, it was just kind of this weird.
Evan, you shattered so many illusions with that statement. But that's all right. Go ahead, please.
It's not that I didn't have fun. It's just that it wasn't what people would think. But I told him, I said, I'm done. I can't. I'm burned out. I am absolutely burned out. And I wasn't saying I'm done forever, but I said, and this is the part you'll get, Rick. I said I need to take a break for a couple weeks. And Rick said to me, he goes, "You don't get a break." Or I said, Randy said to me, he goes,
Randy said, right.
He goes, "You don't get a break." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Evan, the minute you go away, you don't come back. So you need to ride this. You need to ride this horse until it runs its course." And I said, I can't do that. I remember the conversation. I said, "I can't do that, Randy." I said, I'm about to snap. I said, "I'm just tired, and I'm sick of the interviews. I'm sick of the shaking the hands and kissing the babies." I said, "I'm tired." And he goes, "All right, that's how you feel." And he was right. That was it. And he had bookings for me. He had months and a couple more months of bookings, and no telling how much money I'd given up. But I didn't realize it. But I just started being irresponsible too. I mean, I was a sucker for a sad story. A couple months behind on my mortgage. Oh, here you go. My brother can't make his carpet. Oh, here you go. I didn't have a job.
You had a lot of money. You're giving it away now.
Well, yeah, and I didn't have a steady job. It's not like I had a 9 to 5, or I just had a bunch of money in the bank. So I was eating out every night. I was going to clubs. I went and bought. I had that Mercedes. Remember that the big Mercedes I had, and I had some real estate. I bought some real estate, but no one had ever taught me how to manage money. And my father actually was a financial advisor, and he tried to talk to me, and I'm like, what do you know, old man?
Of course you did, right? You
right?
knew the answers. So were you what you might call depressed at that time, or was it just simply tired?
No, I was just tired. It wasn't a depression. I was just burned out. And and then it's funny is because everybody, finds something, and I found drinking.
Well, let's talk about that, man. That seems to be, and I don't mean to say you're not special, but that seems to be a pretty prevalent topic of conversation amongst the guests here on Talking Tough. You've guys like yourself who seemingly are at the top of the world and have it all in the palm of their hand, and something creeps in, whether it's drugs or alcohol, that kind of like takes a chink out of the armor. What happened, man?
Well, no, when you could have drank, my nights back when I was tame consisted of, I say tame, but I would start the night. This was my thing. I would start a night with a shot of wild turkey and an Amstel, and that was my thing for years. I started my night with a shot of wild turkey and Amstel, and when one beer turns into 3 beers and 4 beers, that's fine. But when it turns into a case, and you're just drinking a case of beer just to drink a case of beer, and it's not for any other particular reason. That my reason was I had nothing else better to do with my life, Rick. I mean, really, that was as sad as it was. I wasn't trying to escape from anything. I just, I would do something as pathetic as go to friends' offices who were working, and I'd walk in and plop down and go, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "We're working." And they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know." Because I had, $500,000 in the bank, and I thought I was rich, and I wasn't. I mean, I had a lot more than most, but I just didn't, I didn't think about it because I had nowhere to be. I had no purpose. Does that make sense? I had no reason to wake up in the morning.
Yeah. So you're wandering around aimlessly with $500,000 in the bank, drinking a case of beer. What happened next?
Well, I mean, I got out easy. I got out easy because I had a friend of mine who basically, I was out to lunch with him one day, and this was, 2004, right into 2005, things really started winding down because I got a really good run appearance-wise through 2003, 2004. Remember, I went to Iraq as well. Remember that?
I do remember that, of course. Yeah, I mean, that must have been a thrill, I would think.
Oh, yeah. No, it was great. I loved it. I mean, as much as anyone could love going to Iraq.
Well, of course.
But, yeah, no, so around 2005, things started really, that was it. I got a good couple year run out of it. And a friend of mine just told me, I was at lunch with him. I said, I really don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And he goes, well, you could go back to work. I'm thinking, well, really? And that's when he basically just told me. I got out lucky, Rick, because I had a friend that believed in me and said, look, you got money in the bank. You're good at – I was a contractor for years.
He says go back to work. He's referencing going back to contracting, correct?
Yeah, and he just said, look, I'll help you. You got money, you got plenty of capital. Just get back into contracting, and I got to tell you, Rick, I literally he was going out of town, and he said, I've got a couple of jobs, and I'm just going to give them to you. You do them. The wife and I are going to go out of town for a couple of weeks, and I did them, and I remember calling my dad and going, man, I really feel like I've been paroled. Like I got a new lease on life. Like I am back to me. Like I'm back to what's good and safe in this world. And a lot of people.
Let me interrupt for a second. Sorry, and take this in just to take this point. So you've been traveling nonstop around the country, if not around the world. Oftentimes private, if not that first class, I'm sure. You're going to things like strip clubs and leaving with $15,000 cash or whatever your pay was for the night. You're on the cover of some of the biggest magazines on the newsstand, and you feel like you've hit the mother lode when you're back driving a tractor on a job digging a swimming pool.
It's
and that's awesome, man. I'm sure.
It's funny to say, but I mean, and that's why I tell my folks, I got lucky because and a lot of people don't, again, I keep talking to you guys like you don't know, but you guys are more savvy than most. A lot of the people that get into, especially reality television, they think that's their big break showbiz. So if they get a hit, or they're not even the main. Like I was the main guy on Joe Millionaire. I was Joe Millionaire. I was the guy. I was the focus, right? The girls
of course, yes.
The girls that might have made it to, I don't even what do you call it, like the second or third pick, right? They weren't even the finalists. These girls thought that they were, because they were on TV, which back then that was a big thing.
Yeah, it was a much bigger thing then than now, certainly.
Right, and they I know of people, they weren't even on my show, that ended up moving to L.A., thinking that they all of a sudden they were a star. They slept on couches, they refused to work in a restaurant or wait tables or do anything that would be beneath them because they were stars. They had already been on TV. And they ended up, I know countless people, some of them ended up homeless, living out of their cars because they didn't get it. And that was one of the reasons, Rick, I was asked, not by Randy, because Randy knew better, but I was asked by a few people that had approached me around Randy. They'd gone around Randy to get to me and say, hey, well, do you want to come to a reality show convention? I'm like, a reality show convention? Let's go to the fucking mall. What's a reality show convention? What is that? Like, even Comic-Con is something that, or it has some kind of substance behind it, or even a wrestling, to go meet wrestlers that entertain you as a kid, but a reality show convention? And I was going to get paid $2-3 to sit in the booth and sign autographs, and I thought to myself, who's going to leave their home on a Saturday to come at Marriott sign an autograph? It's like it didn't make sense to me. So to get back to normal life was just something that I was very fortunate to have that happen for me, and it didn't happen for a lot of people.
And you segued back pretty seamlessly, it sounds like. I mean, look, we know a lot of guys from our world, even our good friends, Tom Howard, Matt Weesey, who you mentioned, and I'm not saying anything they themselves haven't said publicly. A lot of us have really gone through the shit, man. You know, drug abuse and depression and even homelessness for some of us. It never got that low for you. Do you feel like you've lived under a lucky star, or you just make the right choices at the right time? Okay, we'll go right back to that. So Evan, we've talked about during this podcast. We've talked about Tom Howard, Matt Weesey. These are things that they themselves have said publicly, so I'm not outing them. Guys like Tom, like Matt, like Sean O'Hara, who we both had a close relationship with, myself included in the following example, depression, addiction, homelessness for some of us. You seem to have been able to avoid all those pitfalls, thankfully.
Well, it doesn't mean that I haven't really come close. You know, because Rick, I remember the date. It was 2008. It was October 18th, and I was working on a job in Fountain Valley, and I remember the woman at my bank calling and saying, "Hey, Evan, this is Dee, and your account is overdrawn, and I need you to transfer some money into that account." And I only had one account at this bank, right? So I said, "Okay, yeah, I'll get some money in there immediately." And she goes, "Okay, great. When can we expect that?" I said, "I'll have it transferred in the next day or two." She goes, "Okay, try to get it in tomorrow." I said, "Okay, great." And I hung up with her, and I just sat down on the curb because I didn't have any more money. I was dead broke. And that was the one point where I was so when I say I'd been, 3 years earlier, when I had done my first job back in construction, I felt really good. But what I was doing was I was still living like I was on TV because I still had that rush of money, and I was still going up to L.A. and staying in 5-star hotels, and I was still going out to Mastro's, and I was still throwing around money like I had it. And I did have it, but I just didn't have it coming in. I had it in the bank, but I just didn't have it coming in. You know what I'm saying, Rick? You know. You've been there. And so I literally sat there on the curb and thought, man, I'm dead broke because I'm overdrawn by $180, $200, whatever it is. And I had just done a job for a friend of mine's father, and he hadn't paid me yet. And my profit margin wasn't much, but I knew if I got that check, I could maybe pull myself out of it. And, yeah, it's weird, Rick, because I managed to stay in this place, but what a lot of people don't know, and not that I would go out and, shout it to the rooftops, town crier around here, ringing a bell, telling everybody my business, but, there were a lot of times in this apartment where I was house poor because I was living in this apartment, but this apartment was my what's the term? This apartment was my it was, what's the word I'm looking for, Rick? This apartment not defined me, but the apartment was my...
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm having trouble, too. But it was just... Well, I don't know if sanctuary is the right word either. It's almost like as if you were hiding out there.
It's not sanctuary. It's this apartment.
It's almost like you're hiding out there in a way, it sounds like.
The thing that defined... I don't want to say defined me, but I knew that if I left this apartment, this really bitchin' apartment in San Clemente, that would be it. Like if I moved all my stuff out and locked this door, I was a failure.
And that's a bad feeling, man, because you and I both at this point in our lives know that, when one door, at the risk of sounding like a cliche, when one door closes, another one opens, or hundreds of others can. But it sounds like you were in a dark place that I've been many times where you just don't see any other alternatives or possibilities, and that's a bad feeling, man.
It is. Well, and you know this all too well because I don't know how you've done it, but you you jump. I mean, you know the story all too well, Rick. You have made a lot of money, a lot of money. I know you have, and you have managed to keep afloat, and we're just guys that figure out that way to do it. Now, was I eating a shitload of SpaghettiOs? Yeah. Those 99-cent cans of SpaghettiOs. Of course, I wasn't. I was buying the cheap bourbon, and the cheap beer. But I, and I was passing out every night, because I was trying to drown my sorrows, and I'm just thanking God that I didn't turn to drugs and stuff like that. But I was such a, this. I'm not much of a. Used to be years ago with Stefan and all you guys when we go out, but I've actually become had become somewhat of a recluse. And so I just, I didn't associate with enough people to get into something heavier. And I don't know why. So that all happened in 2008, and I was dating a girl at the time. And then this went in through 2009, where I was just trying to make it. I was doing anything. I was beg, borrowing, and stealing. No one's stealing, but I was just doing everything I could to stay in the apartment. And then my girlfriend took her life, which I think you know about that.
Yep.
Well, she didn't take her life on my. She didn't take her life on my watch. We were split up 2 months, and she had met this new guy, but it was close enough, a little too close for comfort. And then just for some odd reason, in 2010 and 11. In 2011, I shattered my leg. I ended up getting some disability for that, which allowed me to stay in this apartment and kind of keep going. It was just these things just kept, I just was able to do it. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. And I waded through these rough waters, man, and then I don't know where it happened. It just ended up turning around for me like in 2012, 13, 14, 15.
Okay, so now, flash forward to the year 2020. What does your life look like these days? I'm sure people want to know. We've talked a lot about the past, and this has been interesting. I've heard a lot that I didn't know, so I appreciate everything you shared today. What does your life look like now? What's a day in the life of Evan Marriott like?
It's a lot more structured. I will tell you this, and this is going to make you chuckle. If I could just learn to get back in the gym, I'd probably be a little bit better off. You and Tom have always been good at that, no matter what was going on in your lives. I can't say the same for Stefan. Does John know Stefan?
No, John may not. Stefan Gamlin, and I love to describe Stefan to people because, Evan, it's funny, nobody has ever heard of Stefan. And Stefan is this 6'7", 360-pound, fun-loving, pussy-chasing, alcohol-swilling wild man who would give you the shirt off his back in half a second. And he had a WWF contract. He played pro football. He was on Battle Dome, which was the Gladiators takeoff. And he also was the guy that single-handedly won the FX special when UPW, Ultimate Pro Wrestling, beat the National Football League on the Tough Man competition. So that's Stefan, and probably one of the top one most fun guys to go out with. So there you go. There's Stefan.
Yeah, as long as you could catch him on the second or third double gin and tonic, you were good.
Before he started biting people in public, is that what you mean? Or pulling his pants down?
Well, yeah. Well, we were in Newport. You weren't there. I don't know where you were. You were usually around. You might have been, but it was me and Stefan. I'm sorry, John, I'm going to get off on another story, but it was me and Stefan and Shu, and we were in Newport.
The horseshoe with the reins, yep.
And Stefan was a monster, man, but we went into this bar, and Shu doesn't drink, but I was at the bar. Stefan said, "Give me a double gin and tonic, brother," and I said, "I will." So I'm ordering our drinks. He goes to the bathroom, and I looked at Shu. He'd been in there for a long time. I said, "You doing this shit?" And he goes, "I don't know, bro." And I said, "Shouldn't we?" And the minute I was trying to get out, shouldn't we go get him? He comes out of the bathroom. Stefan was bigger than 6'7", wasn't he? Wasn't he like 6'8"?
He's like 6'7", 360. I think that's pretty fair.
because he was a big dude. I mean, I looked like a baby next to him, and he came out of the bathroom with a guy bigger than him. Did you ever hear this story?
Again, does not sound familiar, no.
This guy looked like a basketball. He was kind of taller and lanky, but I'd never seen a dude bigger than Stefan at that moment. And Stefan, I thought it was just because Stefan had him by the throat and had him up against the wall. But the guy literally, the guy was on his feet, and Stefan was reaching up, choking him, bringing him out of the bathroom. And supposedly, and this is how nice the guy was, John, supposedly Stefan had been in there taking taking a leak. And looked over, and the guy, I don't know if he was I don't think he was assaulting a girl, but the guy had a girl in. Stefan didn't like it, so Stefan grabbed him and dragged him out. And the bouncers, this is how big this dude was, John, and the bouncers, instead of grabbing Stefan and taking him out, looked at Shu and I and said, "Can you get your buddy out of here?"
Of course. Bouncers aren't going to get involved in that. Hell no.
And Shu looks at me and goes, Are you going to get him out? I'm like, what am I going to do? You know, and Stefan's 4 or 5 double gin and tonics deep at this point.
Oh, I know that Stefan all too well. Yes.
Oh yeah, we got him out of there, but that was just one of those nights with Stefan. I don't even know where the hell I was going with that, but.
Hey, it's a fun story, and I'm thinking I should probably have Stefan on because he would be, even though people for some reason don't remember him, he is one of the most hysterical human beings in the history of this planet. He'd be fun to talk with, wouldn't he?
Oh, yeah. Oh, he'd be great.
Evan, you know what? I know that I don't know how much time you have left, but I think at a certain point before we end this interview, I'm thinking we ought to try to dial Stefan in and surprise him for a second. That might be kind of funny.
Yeah, I don't have his number. I don't think I do.
I have like 17 phone numbers for him, but I'm pretty sure I know what the current one is. So
he has a different job every year, so I don't know.
Every half year, I know he does. That's just a nature. But yeah, we'll see if we can't find him before this is out. That'd be pretty cool. All right, so you're living in San Clemente now, and I know you're a contractor and you're working regularly, even during these down times when everybody is being laid off or being furloughed, as they call it. And you're working, and you're in that same beautiful apartment. One thing that I'm very aware of what you do regularly is you write, and you're probably like, what the hell is he talking about? But, dude, your posts on Facebook it's some of the funniest shit I've ever seen in my entire life. And I don't know if you're attempting to be funny. My guess is probably not. I think you're just calling it as you see it. I believe you refer to your place as Casa de Nakedland. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, man. I told you everything was fair game on this podcast, right? So you live in Casa de Nakedland, and of course we're probably all wondering why it's called that. But what I love, man, is I don't want to say you're a very regular guy. I don't think that would be doing you justice or be remotely accurate. But you're definitely. I don't think you have political leanings. I know I don't. And we never talk about politics on this show. But I have to ask. You comment a lot about the state of the world, and particularly the state of our nation. What are your feelings about what's going on? I know it's a really general, big question, but I want to ask it this way: What's your feelings on the mood in this country right now?
On the what in this country?
The mood of this country, to lead a bit. For me, I feel like we're living in very divisive times, where I think it's almost been become acceptable for one person to be, downright mean to another, whether they know him or not. And that's something that bothers me on a daily basis. That'd be my answer if you asked me that question.
Okay,
what's your take on what's going on out there?
Okay, I'm going to give you my take, and when I give you my take, this is actually probably a good time to express this feeling because I've thought about it. I've told a few people about it, but very few people will get it. You and John will get it. Why? Because you're wrestling fans. I have told people that in 2016, America went through Stone Cold Steve Austin syndrome.
Huh, interesting. Okay, I'm vibing with that already. I get it. Go ahead.
They want somebody to come in, talk shit, buck the system, slam 2 beers together, pour them down their throat, tell the boss he's a piece of shit, and we're not going to take it anymore. And that was what the Trump supporters were.
Yep.
They got a guy up there who makes fun of people, calls them names. Trump doesn't drink. I don't know if people know that, but he brags that he doesn't drink. His brother died of alcoholism. I don't know if you guys knew that.
No.
But that's his big reason. My brother died of alcoholism, and I never touched the stuff. He told me, don't ever touch the stuff, and I never did. I mean, I remember him saying it.
Okay.
But that is the Attitude Era with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I've told people that I think America went through an Attitude Era in 2016.
Well, I never thought of it that way, but I would dare say that's a very fair analogy. Okay, go ahead.
It's the only way. It's the best way that I can. They were sick of the normal. They were sick of the typical, and they got this guy in there, who I just said. I'll say it again. Who was going to buck the system, go against the grain, start using choice words that had never been heard of on network television. I mean, you can use the parallels. You know what I mean? And
all right. So now I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to say, first of all, I categorically agree with what you're saying, but now I'm going to put you on the spot. So Stone Cold during the Attitude Era, you're right. I get it because, as you said, I was a fan. I love the character. I like Steve as a person. He's somewhat of a friend, but I love the character. You're right. So
I liked him until I met him.
No, fair enough. But we're not talking about Steve now. We're talking about the country. I was talking about Steve, so my apologies. How do you feel about what's happening in this country from 16 to 20?
Oh, there's no
this Attitude Era. How does this strike you?
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind that there is. Okay, there's a man that we elect. I'd say every 4 years, but okay, so every 4 to 8 years. Okay, there's a person. I want to say man, but I don't want to be chauvinistic about it, right?
Right.
But up to this point, there's a man that we elect every 4 to 8 years that we look to be a representative of who we are as people. Okay. I had somebody. I could not figure out what it was about. Let me back up. When Trump announced his candidacy, I thought, oh shit, everybody, just like everybody. I thought, oh shit, but I could get on board with this. Here we go.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have to admit, I thought the same thing at the time. Okay.
Exactly. Okay, so you know where I'm going. Okay, so something different, something new, right? And then he opened his mouth, and I went, I don't know if I want to get off. I think I want to get off this ride. And I just I try to keep it very simple, stupid. I want to look at a president. I don't want my first impressions of a president to be, is that a wartime president? That's going to come. That's why a president surrounds himself with people that know, like people that know military and people that and health advisors and people that understand pandemics and stuff. But I want a president that if he was a teacher, I would not mind sending my child into his room every day at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning to spend 8 hours with him to teach my child. And I don't get that from that guy. I don't get that from that guy. And that's as simple and as vanilla as I can be about it.
Well, you know what? It sounds like we share very similar views because I don't want to say I'm apolitical, but I'm definitely not educated politically. And I have close friends of mine for many years who are on the cusp of being in the know with the news and the happenings in the country, and they could expound on this much more intelligently than I could. But I'm right where you are. To me, it's about the vibe, and it's about the way people are feeling and the way people conduct themselves, and I think they follow the lead that is put out from the top position. And, all right, we don't get political on Talking Tough, but I guess I'm going to get political and express my views for the first time.
Well, Rick, I don't mean to cut you off, but before you finish that, what have you got on your back? You have a tattoo on your back, and what is that tattoo?
Oh, dude, I've got a absolute giant mess of tattoos all over my back where there's no synchronicity whatsoever.
Okay, let me help you along here. Don't you have a tattoo that says coexist?
I do.
There you go. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I do, and coexist for people that have seen the bumper sticker. It's made up of the C is the Muslim moon, and the X is the Jewish star, and the T is the Christian cross. Yeah, so it's about everybody, as you said, coexisting and getting along together, and that's what I don't like about what's happening in the country right now. I think the man on top, and as he was close to getting elected, I'm almost ashamed to say it now, I used to say, well, if he gets elected, at least it'll be entertaining. And it was for a while, man, but I think it's beyond that now. I think the mood is divisive out there. I think it's mean, and I'd like to. I would just like to live in a. It's not very political or very educated, but I like to live in a warmer and fuzzier place. That's all.
Well, I look at a guy that knows what buttons to push to get his voter, his supporter, riled up.
Without question.
That's not what a president is about. And when you might not like what is written about you in the New York Times, president, you keep your mouth shut. That's none of your concern. That you're here to run a country, not you're not here for a popularity contest. If you were, you would have won the popular vote. I hate to say that, but he's as unpresidential as I can. I just. You can't let me go down this road.
I'm going to say it here first. John, can you give us a drum roll, please?
Yeah.
All right, there's our drum roll. Thank you. Yeah. You ready?
I can't believe John's still on, Frank.
Marriott 2024.
No, come on. No.
We need a change, but you know what? Let's not get too deep into that. It sounds like we're on the same page. Evan, if I know that you do everything, I don't know, it may not be intentional, but it seems like you do whatever you can to stay out of the public eye. If people want to know more about you or follow you anywhere, is there anywhere to do that, or you just prefer to leave that as it is?
No, there's nowhere. I mean, I have my Facebook page, which is, I don't know if it's been a blessing or a curse. I didn't start that page, by the way. It was a friend of mine's girlfriend that started it back in 2009. And it just, a few people that I hadn't seen in years friended me, and it just took off from there.
I know you get into some energetic debates on your page, and it's just under your name, Evan Marriott, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, you're maxed out at Friends. People can follow you there, and I get I think, entertaining and unique take on a lot of what's happening in the country at this point. So I hope you don't mind, but I'm putting it out there for people to take a look at your page, because I like to look at it. I think it's funny.
No, I don't mind. But I tell you what is funny is that, and you've seen this, both you guys have seen this, it is comical to me, and they are fun to look at, but man, it's amazing how social media is nowadays, especially with the females out there, and they've all got no one knows who the hell they are, but they all have a public figure page, like they're like, a Kardashian or there's some major celebrity, and I'm thinking, I had a girl once tell me I was out and we were eating dinner, and she wasn't with us, she was at the bar, and I was with a group of people, and I started talking to her, and I said, hey, can I get your number? She goes, oh, just go to my public figure page on.
Oh, God.
And I'm like,
would you have like 200 fans or something like that? That's awesome.
I'm like,
that's fantastic.
You're not going to give me your number. You want me to go to your public figure page on some social media? I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm thinking. and you know me, Rick. I'm not going to. I would never throw back at her. Come on, look. I've been on Howard Stern 3 times. I've been on this. I've done this. Who the fuck? I'm like, you got a public figure page? I don't even have a public figure page. And I'm like, come on, really? It's not that great, No,
it is so much like that. And this is a bit of an aside, but I have to say it at the risk of putting ourselves over. I think about you and Tom Howard and Sean O'Hare and Stephon. And I, despite the fact that I'm a foot shorter and 200 pounds less than all you guys, I like to sometimes put myself in that group. And I think for as much shit as we all went out and caused, and as much havoc as we wreaked or hell as we raised, I think part of what bonded us was we're always cool with the women, man. We're not going to give them a bad time. But we're going to be nice, we're going to be respectful. But if they're going to be like that, then later days, right?
Oh yeah. I remember. I remember many nights when Yeah, we won't get into that shit.
Now, do you have a girlfriend these days?
What did you say?
Do you have a girlfriend these days?
No. I was seeing a girl last year and didn't work out, and I've just been kind of single ever since. But I don't worry about that.
No, you and me both. Just curious. I'm sure some people out there were wondering that. I was wondering it, so I wanted to ask. And I get that you like to live a even-keeled, simple life these days. I know I very much aspire to that. But that said, what gets you excited these days? What are you looking forward to?
I'll tell you what I'm starting to appreciate more, and I think it's something that I'm trying not to think about what the time that I've lost. But I'm trying to, and this is going to sound really corny, but I mean, how corny can it be? I'm trying to really appreciate the time I have with my family these days.
Yeah, you're really close with your parents, for instance, right?
Yeah, my mother and my father are still alive. I'm really fortunate for that. They're 77 going on 50. And I don't think they know that they're 77, and that's a great thing. But you look back. I was talking to my sister about this over the holidays this past Christmas. It's just you don't realize how that time slips away until it slips away, And I know that our we're all on a timer, and I'm starting to call them more. I'm starting to. I mean, and I know I'm trying to appreciate the things that I didn't appreciate years ago. That when I actually had the money to travel back and see them, you know what I mean? And I do now, but I mean, I'm trying to just appreciate family more, because I know a lot of people don't have family. I know people that don't have a father or a mother or either. And it's just, I want to just take advantage of the blessings that I have.
That's great, and there's a huge lesson in that, I think, for everybody. I'm one of the orphans you mentioned a moment ago, and I would love to have a dad, a mom around still, and I don't, but I don't regret what I don't have. I've got 4 dogs, and this may sound corny. You mentioned corny a few moments ago, but I'm so much these days just appreciating being the best dog dad that I can, and.
Well, you do a lot with pit bull rescue and stuff like that. It's amazing, Rick. I mean,
it's a huge part of my life. Yeah, absolutely.
You eat it up. You love it. If you eat it, sleep it, and breathe it.
Yep, but thank you. Absolutely. But I think the lesson though is in what you said, man. And if everybody could stop for a second and take stock in what they have, it'd be a much happier, friendlier world, wouldn't it? I'm getting a little philosophical now, but I truly believe what I just said.
Yeah, it's a lot of truth to that.
So, Evan, man, it's been really good having you on and good catching up with you. Wow, I mean, I don't even know how to wrap this up. From a guy who, Evan Marriott, a.k.a. Joe Millionaire, who absolutely looked to be on top of the world, what people would perceive to be on top of the world with the magazine covers and the viewers and the television ratings, to a guy who I'm really happy to hear. It sounds like he's on top of the world with the life he's living right now, man, and I really appreciate hearing about that.
Yeah, you got to keep it simple, stupid, Rick.
That's cool. That's gonna be my mantra for the rest of the day, man. Maybe the rest of the year. Hey, Evan, man, thank you so much, and I really, really appreciate you being on. And you have any parting words from the wise for us?
No, I mean, I appreciate you reaching out to me, and for a guy that has never felt like he was really relevant at all, even though I've done probably a lot more than most. I appreciate you reaching out and acknowledging that, and I appreciate your kind words. And this has been fun. It's been a good little couple hour escape.
Right on, man. Hey, Evan, thank you very much. It's Rick Bassman here on Talking Tough in the wilds of Maui, talking to my longtime friend, Evan Marriott, on the beach in San Clemente, signing off on Talking Tough.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.